Hello and welcome back around the Bonfire. We're here on a victory Sunday after Chicago Fire FC beat the top of the league, Vancouver Whitecaps, 3-1 away from home to earn their 9th point on a 3-game road trip to start the season. Joined with the smaller crew today, but the best of the best, without a doubt. We've got Alan, the pole with the goal, and the man with the saxophone. Alan, how are you feeling today, sir?
Slightly fall in love, but I came on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Not a better way to come back to home against a floundering Montreal team. Also joined by DJ, our illustrious producer and stat man. DJ, how are you doing today?
I am doing quite well. I am not recreating the scream.
All right, we're not recreating the scream, but suffice to say, DJ is incredibly excited for the current form of the soccer club we all enjoy watching play.
It's only slightly historic.
What was that?
It's only slightly historic, which is kind of my autism. So hey,
only slightly historic. Love that. Wonderful.
and only
But yeah, as
slightly
we
autistic.
mentioned, really wonderful showing from the guys last night. But before we jump into that, we're going to jump into a little bit of news that we've missed since the last time we saw you. Brian Gutierrez was called up to be with the U.S. men's national team at the CONCACAF Nations League. We all saw what happened Thursday. Unfortunately, no cap tie yet, but they should be kicking off here shortly. And we will hopefully see him make his first senior cap in a competitive game, if that makes sense. Hopefully we'll see that, but Brian Gutierrez leaves the Fire down in midfield. We also got the news Jonathan Dean suffered a punctured lung, what I think we all kind of thought was going to end up being a concussion. So we'll cross our fingers and pray and hope for the best that he's recovering and is back with the squad soon. Kind of on that note, a few lineup changes from the previous week. Andrew Gutman did feature at left back, though he only played for about 45 minutes, as he was suffering from an illness all week, so not quite at his best, but he did get out there. And then we got an extended look at Justin Reynolds in the second half, which was exciting, and I'm sure we'll touch on later in the show. From there, Leo Barroso got his first start at right back in MLS. I think really more of the same there, and I'm sure we'll touch on it, but exciting to see the youngster get his first start, go the full 90 and contribute to the team. And then with Guti being called up and Kellen Acosta still out injured with no official timetable yet, we saw Mauricio Pineda, Sam Williams, and Sergio Orejel, a homegrown trio in the midfield for the second week in a row, actually. And we also saw Dylan Borso and Romani Kouame starting on the bench, with Conning signing a short-term agreement so he could appear on the bench as well. Though Borso and Cunnings did not appear last night, while Kouame actually made his debut and made quite an impact. Quick little game recap just so we can kind of figure out how we got to that 3-1 finish. Hugo Kuiper scoring the first goal inside the opening minute, if I'm correct.
It was like 50-something seconds.
Yeah.
It was the 58 seconds.
Seventh fastest goal in Fire history or something like that?
It was the 6th fastest, and if my quick looking through Wikipedia is accurate, it was the first time the Fire has scored in under a minute since Patrick Nyarko in 2012.
Wow.
Zam.
So certainly bucking some trends. And DJ, what's the last time we won 3 games straight away from home?
Sometime in 2008.
There we go.
So
I love that.
17 years ago.
Yeah, so 13 years and 17 years, quite a streak to break for the boys in. Well, they did wear red this week. So boys in red, the men in red.
No, they're not the boys in red. They're the men in red.
I know. I said it after I said it. All right.
I know. I just had to. I had to say I'm sorry because I'm pretty sure there's another team that calls themselves red and they say boys in red, and I'm like, you guys aren't red. You guys are pink.
You're talking about the lads in raspberry. Yeah, gotta love it. But a beautiful ball played by Jack Elliott out to Barroso, who linked up with Zinkernagel on the right side, ends up feeding into Hugo for an early goal to give the Fire the lead. From there, Vancouver battled back, equalized initially off what was a pretty poorly placed ball from Sam Rogers and a bit of a panic clearance attempt from Mauricio Pineda, spilled the ball into our own box, and Vancouver was able to convert from there. Later in the game, second half, Zinkernagel cleans up the mess after Bamba puts a ball into the box, converts the winner, and then in the last 5 minutes, Romani Kouame comes on and scores what ends up being the dagger to finish off the game 3-1 after what felt like an incredibly impressive 6-7 minutes of just shot after shot after shot going at Chris Brady and that defensive interior. And the guys stood strong, took it, and ended up turning it around and getting another goal out of the deal.
Yep.
Absolutely. And so kind of from there, we'll jump into the talk. And I think one thing I wanted to get from everybody today was just one guy who stood out in terms of performance, either from expectation or kind of continuation throughout the season. So, Alan, I'll toss to you on that one to kind of kick us off there.
The league will know the name Hugo Kuipers even more so now that his goal streak is continuing and that he just continues to be a present up front. I'm saying this week in, week out, that front line with Zinkernagel and Bamba with him. Like, I mean, I've said this last year. He needs support, and especially Bamba. That is the support he needs. He needs that front. He needs that front line. And honestly, Barroso just and like feeding into that as well. Just it's chef's kiss, honestly. Just chef's kiss. And just to show that in the first minute as well. So keep at it, Ugo.
Hugo is now he is now firmly in control of second in the Golden Boot race, only behind Barabo,
Mm-hmm. And I mean,
who,
man, talk about. Oh, go ahead.
to be fair, Barabo did not play this week because he's on international duty with Israel.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and talk about Ty Baribo, man. What a heck of a start for him to be missing this week and still leading in the Golden Boot race after Hugo's still scoring. Um, Yeah, no, Alan, I'm right there with you, man. Super, super impressive performance. And even if you look at the goal that ended up being the winner from Zinkernagel, Hugo starts that run off by winning the ball in midfield, right? He's not just pressing up at the top of the box, he's getting in defensively. Made a really nice play to win the ball, push Bomba out, and then Bomba obviously gets it in. But he's been super involved kind of all over the field, really.
Yeah, because I think a lot of us expected Ugo to be sort of like a Lewandowski striker, that he's a poacher, he's in the middle, he's waiting to get service from either the wingers or the wing backs. But no, he is involved himself. And that's how we got the goals from Zinkernagel as well as some of the other goals throughout the beginning of the season. So he is himself involved in the creation. And so he is, once again, he's not only getting support, he's giving support, and it's been beautiful, honestly.
Yeah, no, 1,000,000%. I'm right there with you. I think one thing we've heard a lot about him coming in is he is kind of a target man. He is very straight up front. But yeah, to your point, man, he's been wonderful all over the field. His passing has been great. His defensive play has been great. His hold up play has been incredible. Uh, Worth every cent so far. And hopefully that trend continues. I know they always say the Berhalter system makes it easy for strikers. Man, I think Hugo's doing all that and so much more. He's putting in a lot of work on both ends to get those results. So yeah, 100% with you. Massive, massive win. I think for mine, kind of watching back was Jack Elliott. We talked about a little bit last week of this Vancouver press up front might not be quite as aggressive as it typically is, just being down Brian White, Ali Ahmed, Pedro Vite, being down kind of their front three. But I think watching the way Jack Elliott controlled the ball in space, welcomed that pressure in, and then played these very deliberate long crosses up to Barroso up the side to kind of free him, spring the attack on that right side was super impressive on top of all the normal defensive work he does, right? Being such a presence in the box, being a great ball stopper and ball winner. But super, super impressed from Jack Elliott last night.
Honestly, yeah. It's definitely been an improvement when it comes to the back line. I mean, we've gone from week one Columbus, where we shot ourselves in the foot 3 times to lose that game. We've to DC, where at the very end we just weren't there, and it feels like each time, each throughout each game, we are inching towards controlling, especially in the defensive end. Now, this game was still a lot of back and forth, and as we sort of mentioned before, how in the last like 5 minutes of added time, Vancouver was really pressing, but that defense is getting more and more control. And just imagine once we have a full, healthy roster.
Yeah, absolutely. DJ, what did who stood out to you last night?
To me, it was two guys. It was, I posted this on Twitter, but it was Sergio Orhel and Sam Rogers. And when Sam Rogers and Orhill first started, because Orhill started the first game, Rogers started the second, they did not have good games. They had pretty bad games, and you had struggles. We even talked about how it wouldn't be shocking if we see both of them subbed out after the next game. But Berhalter stuck with them, and he keeps giving them their chances, which is something he did a lot at the national team level too. And it's paid off. The amount of improvement we've seen between Orhel and Rogers is insane, considering how they started, and considering the fact that Orhel wasn't even figured to be on the roster. We were talking about Orhel probably will be loaned out at some point this year, but now he's pretty much a locked-in starter.
Yeah, it raises some interesting questions there, really for both of them. I think I agree with both, probably more Sergio than Sam, although Sam's improvement over the last few weeks has certainly been noted. It raises some really interesting questions of Carlos Terran should be back, right? He played kind of the closing minutes last night, helped seal the game away. Romani Kouame made his first appearance last night, and frankly, in the 8 minutes he was on the field, looked awesome, right? He was super confident with the ball at his feet, got multiple shots on target in those 8 minutes. Really seemed to be a guy who can be dynamic. And it raises some interesting questions in terms of you have this youngster in Sergio Orhel who's been playing outstanding soccer. You have Helen Acosta, who is captain, leader of the team, one of your bigger, not a big money signing, but a big money MLS signing, right? Max Tam for an in-league player. And then, Sam Rogers, how does he fit in once Tehran is back? So Greg's, in a way, he's got some difficult decisions to make, but he also has the benefit of all of a sudden, when we're healthy, I've got 6 midfielders who I trust to start a game. I've got 3 center backs who I trust and another one on the bench in Omar Gonzalez who, is Omar Gonzalez. And you trust him to go in there and shut a game down if you need him to or fill in as it's needed, right?
Yeah, you list how many options we have. It's fully healthy, and I think that's something that we were absolutely complaining about in the last few seasons, how because of MLS roster rules, it just feels like we're in such a stuck position where we have very limited options. But now as we progress, those options are expanding, and Greg is truly in control of this. And honestly, one thing I also wanted to say, that midfield of Sam Williams, Mauricio Panejo, Sergio Orejel being a homegrown midfield, just it's awesome to see how this club is going in the direction of we have boys at home, or men, should I say, we have men at home. Well, I mean, you could say boys because some of them started out literally when they were like 17, 18, and they're making their way through the club to honest and playing at a top level. It's incredible. I'm loving this, honestly, just seeing how the club have taken academy players and homegrown players and put them in the system, and they're blooming. I'm absolutely in love with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, a slight caveat that I didn't think to mention before, and I should now, right? Sam Williams on a homegrown deal, but technically not a Chicago Fire homegrown player. The Fire purchased his his rights from Red Bull. So it's a homegrown contract, but he didn't come up through our academy. But you can also make the point of, huge credit to the scouting team to look out, see a team like Red Bull and say, hey, you're not taking advantage of this guy. We'd like to, right? And getting what is a pretty sweet deal on that, right?
Well, if I remember correctly, he originally was supposed to play, but because of either like roster constraints or something, he wasn't able to. And that's why he ended up moving away. So,
Yeah, well, there you go.
Full circle.
Yeah, absolutely. Make those opportunities. And, you got to give him a lot of credit for seizing every opportunity he's had since he joined the club. He's on his first team contract now, and he's got a place, right? And that is where I think I do kind of want to point out, right? DJ, you talked last week about some of the passing stats. And so I was kind of curious when I went back this week to see who had the most passes, what was the accuracy like. And I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, right? I'll trust your memory better than mine. But looking back through that, there was the Fire were playing far more direct this week, right? There was a lot more big switches, there was a lot more crosses. And so I just want to kind of, from my own sake, right? One of my big concerns when Greg was hired was, how dynamic are we going to be, right? When you talk about a coach with a system, are we going to get stuck too far into that system and play one kind of way, even when it's not benefiting the club? And so give a ton of credit there of they saw the opportunity to make these big switches, these big crosses. He even said last night in the presser, he said, "We know they're an aggressive attacking team and they put a lot of pressure on your penalty box. And we knew we could expect that. And we also knew their midfield really has to shift to cover the wide spaces. So the idea was to go from one side to the other. And that's how they scored the first goal. We saw them break out and put the ball in dangerous positions like that multiple times. So huge credit to the coaching staff in terms of actually preparing the guys to play in multiple ways and making those adjustments to take advantage of what was ultimately a pretty depleted Vancouver roster, even though Fire were without a few guys too. Theirs was arguably even more.
Definitely, you can't not give Greg credit for all this. I also saw on Twitter that the players are all buying into what he's selling, which is really good. Considering over the last few years, how many times have we heard where you've lost the locker room? I mean, Klobos, we know they loved him, but he lost the locker room after a certain point. I think Ezra lost it, Wiki lost it, Pano was Pano. But like now, everyone's invested. Everyone knows what's going on. Even at the point, so yesterday during the game, there was a point, I think in like the 20th minute, from the 20th through 45th minute, where you could kind of tell the Fire weren't as interested. Vancouver was kind of not as interested. They were taking their chances, but they weren't striking it to be deadly. They were just kind of wanting to get out of here without dying, basically. And halftime approaches, you see the substitution, you see Gutman come off, which he probably should have come off, and you see Reynolds come on. You see Berhalter probably said, listen, go out there, let's get this win. They got their goal. They held on for dear life. They nearly got multiple other goals. I mean, the change in tactics and the change in mentality are palpable. I mean, you can't underestimate it right now. And Berhalter, full credit to him, the man has done the impossible and made the Fire dangerous, extremely dangerous.
Yeah, there's certainly a level of trust there that I think wasn't in years past.
And speaking of dangerous, I think one thing I've always complained in the last few years is players just going for it. Like I felt like they were being way too careful. They weren't like taking the risk. But this time, I mean, heck, you had one of the goals from I think it was last week where, Bamba stole the ball, passed it forward to Guman, and there was a goal. And I felt like, with Zinkernagel's second goal, instead of when he was dispossessed, instead of just leaving it, he went for it again, and shaboom, he turned the tide again.
Yeah, taking advantage of the first touch in those dangerous areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
The
First
team
touch,
taking those
improving
up.
that first touch. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but that's like something
No, yeah.
I'm very sure I've had an aneurysm over the last few seasons watching this team, is how sometimes the first touches are super sloppy, or how whenever we do have like a long ball or a crossover, they just play like a game of heading the ball back and forth between themselves and the opponents. So just that too as well. So
The team also, you can even watch just the passing. They're doing a lot more one-touch passing, or 1-2 touch passing, which that's definitely not hurting the team right now.
Yeah. Well,
But
and part of that. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, part of it too. On the flip side, the Fire are not afraid to absorb pressure. Alan and I were talking about this beforehand, but last few seasons, it's kind of felt like anytime a team is coming at the Fire, there's a very good chance they're going to get a shot. Extremely good chance that shot's going to be on goal, and extremely good chance that shot that's on goal is going to go past the keeper. Right now, it does not feel like that. Part of that is because Brady is reminding people that he's one of the top goalkeepers in the league. Part of that is the defense is just shoring itself up. I don't remember when the last time was that the Fire had everyone was coming back on defense. You have Bamba, you have Zinkernagel, you have Kuipers coming back. Like, it is very much a case of when the Fire lose possession, everyone is going back. And when the Fire gain possession, everyone's going forward except for like one or two people. And it's like Elliott or Rogers will take the turns.
Yeah, and I think you're really just kind of seeing a mindset shift. Excuse me, with the level of confidence as it rises, I can't, as I was sitting watching last night, the comp that came to mind for me watching, especially in the second half, center backs playing with the ball at their feet and just waiting and inviting that pressure in. It very brought up like, early De Zerbi at Brighton days, right? Of no, we're going to wait until you press us. Once you press us, we'll move the ball. That like we are going to make you commit to moving your forwards into our back line so we can open up our midfield. And we saw time and time again, it worked, right? Doesn't mean you always got it into the attacking third, doesn't mean you always put it into a scoring opportunity, but it created room for the midfielders and for Barroso out on the side to do so. And I think to your point, DJ, like just the whole team seems calm under pressure, right? You look at Leo Barroso sitting out on the right side by himself in a one-on-one. He and look, maybe people will disagree with me. People will say I'm dumb, but like he let himself get beat 3 or 4 different times because he knew the guy wasn't going to get around him. He's like, yeah, put the ball through my legs. I'm just going to win it because I'm going to get to it. And it was a really impressive level of confidence. But I feel like we're seeing that over the entirety of the squad when they're under pressure. Unfortunately, save one poor moment from Mauricio Pineda last night, where maybe if instead of turning and trying to hoof the ball out, he just holds the ball, tries to keep it there. We don't end up conceding on what was kind of a free goal in a way. I mean, really, really awesome finish, but when you get the ball in the box, kind of on a whim like that, it feels like it's a little unfair.
When in doubt, kick it out.
Well, maybe not always. Maybe not always.
Maybe not always. Okay, maybe not always, but I felt like in that situation, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I think we've kind of yapped enough here without talking about the very obvious man of the match, who Greg said was the coach's man of the match, right? And that would be Philip Zinkernagel. We talked last week a little bit about kind of underwhelming performances so far. Hasn't been overly involved in the team, and I don't know if he's listening to the show. I don't know if it's a me thing where Guti was like, hey, this guy was talking about me. Now he's talking about you. But really super impressive performance from him playing that ball into Hugo, the goal to finish it. I have written down, he had the most successful take-ons in the game last night. And I mean, watching back, like could have had 2 or 3 goals. Like this is a game that very easily could have exploded to 5-6, 4-5-1 or 4-5 nil, excuse me. Very easily had we converted some of those later chances better.
That's, I think, something that I was talking with DJ prior to the recording, that watching these last few games, it's like we could have stepped away with at least 1 or 2 more goals than what the final score was. There's definitely a lot of chances that either went right to the keeper, went over. And that's something that we saw in the last game as well. And that's something we haven't seen really in past seasons, where it's like, I'm sorry, like we win games, but it's like usually by a thread. And when we feel that pressure in the final few minutes, we're like more like, ooh, we truly escaped that one. But now it's like we won. We definitely could have gotten more, and it's a great feeling, honestly, that we're pushing for more. And going back to Zinkernagel, honestly, just him and Kuipers and Bamba in that front three, just giving each other the opportunity instead of just mindlessly like hoofing it forward, expecting Kuipers or someone else to be there. It's like someone is always there. They're the right placed, right opportunity. Essentially, that's what it feels like with his goal, especially.
Yeah, absolutely. The timing has been fantastic. There was, for the life of me, I can't remember who the conversation was with, but there's a conversation last year about, what's going on with some of the development of the younger guys, specifically Brian Gutierrez, or even, Hugo Kuipers, who had a good year, but didn't necessarily play to the level that might be expected of somebody who's signed for $12, $13 million. And I think one of the things I heard pretty consistently was like, the system we were running last year, unfortunately, wasn't much of a system, right? There wasn't a lot of trust. There wasn't a lot of communication. If I play the ball in, I don't know if somebody's going to be there. I just think that's kind of where they should be. So I'm going to play it in and hope for the best. And you saw a lot of disjointed attacks. You saw a lot of misses in the midfield. You saw a lot of easy giveaways. And not to say all roads lead back to Greg, right? But I think we're seeing these players be empowered by a system where I know that if I make this pass, somebody's going to be on the other end of it. Bamba knows as he's crashing down, if I just play this into the center of the box, Zinkernagel may not be the first guy to touch it, but he'll be in the area if the ball is free and he'll have a chance to convert. And that's what leads to the winner, right? There was a moment, I think early second half, if I remember correctly. I'd have to look back at my notes here. It was around the 28th minute, excuse me. There's a really, really clean switch through the midfield where we saw Bamba and Zinkernagel kind of cross over. And so now all of a sudden you have Zinkernagel playing down the left side with the ball at his feet, crossing into Bamba at the back post. And it didn't result in anything, unfortunately. It was just a nice defensive play from Vancouver. But it's such an interesting use of the tools you have at your disposal, right? Of you have Zinkernagel who can play well with both feet. He's, if I'm remembering correctly, like his, more traditional position would be on the left. So giving him that opportunity to go out wide and try to set Bamba up and maybe catch the defense in between shifts, I was, really, really, really interesting use of this offense and how fluid all three of those guys can be across the top. As we've talked about how we've seen Hugo dropping really deep, playing out wide, not just in that traditional 9 spot.
Yeah, and first of all, the goal to mention, the fact that he is surrounded by 3-4 Whitecaps players and he's off balance, left foot, it goes bink, bar, and into the back of the net. It's incredible, just to say the least. The fact that he had the instinct to just go for it instead of maybe just giving it up and letting it them boot it away. Essentially, he was like, "I have the ball. I'm falling. I'm gonna get up."
I have the ball. I'm falling. I'm still gonna drop one on your head, Vancouver.
You just got zinked.
You just got zinked. Yeah, but super impressive performance again from Philip Zinkernagel. A couple other quick ones I want to talk about. Kind of that fullback spot. Obviously, the news of Jonathan Dean being out, punctured lung. Can't imagine we'll see him for a little bit here. But like I said before, we'll keep our prayers and our thoughts out for him. I thought a pretty impressive 45 minutes from Justin Reynolds, right? Not so much he's taken my breath away or playing better than Andrew Gutman, although Gutman, not his best nights. You could tell the way he was grabbing. His fitness just wasn't back from that illness yet, so hopefully he's 100% next week. But overall, I mean, I thought Reynolds more than held his own. You saw Bamba dropping very deep next to him, kind of helping defensively, but overall, for a swing fullback when we're in need, it seems like a solid option there. Can I get one of the more extended runs we've seen of him? I don't know if he made an impression on you guys.
I think Reynolds did fine. I don't want to say he did like amazing or anything, but for what he was tasked to do, he did well.
Yeah, I mean, as we mentioned, and this goes to the other homegrowns or like Sam Williams or how they start. It's usually a slow start for our homegrowns. So I feel like he's still getting maybe used to the system, but he did his job, and that's all we can ask for, honestly.
Yeah, and I think it goes kind of to what you were talking about before, Alan, where in a league like MLS, where we can talk about teams spending big money. There is ultimately a pretty tough salary cap, right? In terms of actually filling out your roster. It's why you see a lot of top heavy teams in MLS, and why some teams like Philadelphia, who aren't big spenders but really smart, can have continued success like we're seeing now. And so I think that's been huge to me to see the way Greg wants to use the academy, not being afraid to call these guys up, get them in games, use their call ups, and then sign them. But also having a system in which they are very easy to implement. They can step into their role, play their game, and look good. And while he's not an academy product, I would almost say the same thing for Leo Barroso, who again was the kid is lightning in a bottle. Like I don't know how else to say it. He's been super impressive every time he has the ball at his feet. Involved on the goal, the first goal to Hugo, and it seemed like every single time the ball got flipped, I should say field position got flipped, it was at Barroso's feet. He's pushing out wide, playing wonderful defense. And I think it's part of the reason why you've seen him slide in so easily is because of a well-defined system. Yeah, sorry, I didn't have a solid way to end that, but I think that's certainly part of the reason why.
Man, I say to that.
Yeah, and one more thing I'll mention, and I'll let you guys talk me out of it if you'd like to, but after 8 minutes, I'm very much sold on Romani Kwame. That was a really impressive debut for somebody who barely touched the ball. It seems like all our new signings have a habit of scoring when they only play 10 minutes on their first game.
Immediate shot on goal and just an immediate impact right at the very end with linking up with Marin Haile Selassie. Again, similar to what I said about Zink, when he got in the ball, hustling with the Whitecaps defenders, didn't let go, and he took a shot, boom, left foot, dagger.
Yeah, and really wonderful recovery on that as well. So huge credit to him. Excited to see what else he looks like. I would hope, given Kellen's injury, we may see him start next week. But we'll cross our fingers and hope for the best on that one. Obviously, he's still working his way back, so there's a chance he's not ready for that many minutes yet. Awesome, fellas. Any more thoughts on the game before we kind of keep the ball rolling here?
This is only slightly amazing.
Yeah, only slightly amazing to be darn near top of the league. Was it, what are we, 5 games in? I think
Yeah.
had you told me, given the injury situation, that we had 4 points right now at the beginning of the season, I would be like, you know what? That kind of makes sense. I can live with that. To be on 10 points at this point in the year feels pretty dang good.
For reference, this is the second best start in team history behind 1999, and it is tied with 2008 for the second best start. So this is literally the best start in 17 years.
And it's the most goals we've scored through the first 12 games
ever. And to make it even better, the next game is against Montreal, which is actually a really good game for the Fire because Montreal's not a good team this year. Like, just end the story.
You got to be careful. That is a Fabian Herber's revenge game, my friend.
That's true. However, the Fire, this is one of those games the Fire should win. The Fire need to get their home win, unless the Fire decide, you know what, away from home we're going to be really good, at home we're going to be meh.
I was about to say, like, when we started off this season, I went to the first 2 games at Columbus. We shot ourselves 3 times in the foot. Against DC, just that not happy ending. And with the away trip, I thought that we were going to see I maybe like a few, like a point or two or something, I don't know, but like just seeing 9 out of 9 points, like I personally, I'm still having trouble processing this to happen, and I would love to see this this Saturday against Montreal. Of course, now my thing is I don't say anything until the final whistle because heck, it can be a team that's at the very bottom, they still haven't won, but I'm not saying anything. That's all I'm gonna say. That's like a little bit of my one of my superstitions. I don't say anything until the final whistle. So
yeah, well, and there's certainly going to be for lack of a better word, a desperate team, right? They need that win. They haven't played at home yet. Those guys need something. So certainly not a game to be taken lightly. That said, this is where we would normally transition into some talk about Montreal, but kind of on those notes, you'll notice this is a slightly shorter episode. Reason being, we're actually making some changes to the format. So as opposed to game recap, talk about the game, and then immediately jumping into the preview for next week, we're actually going to give you slightly less while giving you slightly more. So you're actually going to get 2 episodes of the Bonfire every week. The first, typically debuting on Monday, will be what we're talking about right now, right? Talking about any news that we missed, going over the game review, and really just kind of breaking down what happened on that match day. And then we'll have one later in the week that will talk more about any big news that's come up during the week or the preview for this coming week, with the hope of we'll have more information, we'll have better ideas, we'll have a little clearer picture of what the actual 11 on 11 is going to look like. and also so we can spend a little more time going deeper into both. So we're super excited about kind of that change. We'll keep, all the favorite faces that you've had. I think I'll still be around, maybe not every week, but certainly some of the time. Matt, Tim, Alan, and DJ will be here as well. So we're really excited about what the future of the show holds. Fellas, anything you want to kind of add into that?
This is fantastic news. I mean, it always feels like whenever we release an episode, something happens like literally the next day, and we're like, oh, or like again. So having a second episode throughout the week after we have a press conference, we get some more reports and all that information. Just it makes sense to give you guys the information.
Yeah. So hopefully we can make this the best it can be for y'all who listen and join us in every week. So we certainly appreciate that. And we will look forward to seeing you later this week on the first preview episode of the Bonfire, where Chicago Fire FC will be at home taking on Club de Foot Montreal, right? That's what we're calling them now. Not the Montreal Impact anymore. Hasn't been for quite some time.
I just call them the Impact. They're the Impact until the end of time.
They're the Impact in that
Sears
gift of
Tower.
Frank Lopas, thrusting his hips, and that's all that matters to me.
Hey, man,
All right, wonderful. Fellas, anything we want to add in before we wrap up here?
We slip inside as we fall in love, and I just can't seem to get enough.
Well, on that note, thank you everybody once again for joining us in around the Bonfire. It's been a pleasure having you. As always, for our producer Austin, who does some really wonderful work on the back end, for Alan, for DJ, and for Matt and Tim, who can't be here today. And John, again, thank you again for joining us in around the Bonfire. And come on, you men in red.